Right. I think we're good. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry if the picture looks a bit weird this morning. I'm just trying a different setup and light. It seemed to look to myself quite purple. But anyway, can we do a sound check for the couple of people that are here in the chat room? Just to make sure that you can hear me and see me okay. Just make the space a little less cluttered. Okay, thanks, John. You can hear me and all good, sweet. So hi, everybody out there, and welcome to another guided meditation and Q&A. We didn't have one the last fortnight, you may have been aware, because we have been fortunate enough to be on retreat. So that was quite lovely for us, and reaping the benefits of having retreat time. So I hope all of you at some stage can have time in your life where you just take it out from your normal routine, even if your life's not that busy, like ours isn't busy. You know, at one level we're often on retreat, but just to stop any routines is really helpful and puts you into a quite different space of reflection and just getting out of certain complacencies. So while we're waiting for people to get the notification, I'm not sure if there's much to share with people. Next month, for those of you in Australia and not too far from southern New South Wales, we have a weekend retreat running, which you can find details about on our website. And so anyone who wishes to drive up from maybe Sydney or Melbourne, it's a bit of a long drive, but anyway, for a short retreat. But there's also an option to do it via Zoom, which has its benefits and its drawbacks, but they're offering that as an option. So that might be helpful for some people. Rightio. So wherever you are in the world, I can see even the Europeans are up. Oh, that's right. So we're in daylight savings now in Australia, so that's going to has changed the relationship between our times in Europe. So it might be a little more friendly over there now, which might explain why I'm seeing a few more Europeans and English people from England who have joined. So daylight savings. And isn't the world in an interesting state that we find ourselves in yet again? And so maybe today, as we go into the meditation, we can reflect on ways we can integrate what we might perceive as a solitary meditation practice into making it real and connected with the world, and the fact that, you know, at one level, the world, as you know, if you listen to the teachings and reflect on them, or have even had direct experience, the world as it appears is like a dream. And that gives us a sense of being able to let go of the perceived solidity of things, of separate objects and people. But at another level, these appearances are happening. So these appearances are real at the level of appearances. And people do suffer at the level of appearances. So we must never forget that and, you know, cut ourselves off, or as some people refer to it as spiritual bypassing, to integrate the apparent world with the deeper reality is part of what we need to learn to do in meditation, so that we always remain connected to our fellow beings, whether they be human beings or animals or other beings, and maintain an attitude of loving kindness, compassion, concern for their welfare. Otherwise, there's so many psychological traps and spiritual traps that we can fall into if we pick up these teachings in the wrong way, misunderstand where they're coming from, and misunderstand the deeper reality, so that then it becomes a absolutionist kind of view or an extreme view. So how to do that in meditation, and maybe today we can reflect on that. I'll try and give some sort of guidance and pointers for feeling connected without feeling overwhelmed by the suffering in the world, and at the same time maintaining that level of equanimity, balance, and open-hearted compassion. And it's not easy, and we'll always, be struggling between all of these things. Okay, so with that introduction, I invite you all just to come into a comfortable position, and hopefully technology will behave itself for this duration. And just begin by taking a few conscious deep breaths. And if you can collapse the chat, or just forget the chat for now, so that that doesn't become a distraction. But wherever you are, you can either close your eyes if that feels comfortable, or simply lower your gaze and just invite you to come into stillness and presence. Wherever you are, and whatever's going on around you. Nothing should be a barrier to coming in to full presence. So tuning in to your natural breathing process, aligning with your body, so just taking whatever time you need to be sensitive to the body, to keep it upright for a short time. And to allow the movements of thinking and planning, worrying, pontificating, to just slowly start to calm down and slow down. being aware of the different sensations throughout the body. The touch of coolness or heat on the surface of the skin. The vibratory flow of pulsation, sensations, all throughout the body. And regardless of whether the body sensations are feeling pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, just notice how when we deliberately turn our attention inwards to the body and the breath, straight away we start to feel a greater sense of well-being, of calmness. If we can simply let things be just as they are, without trying to interfere and push them away, or grab hold of them, and just take our seat in present moment awareness. Straight away, there's a sense of stability. Whatever memories, perceptions, or even moods might be stirring in your mental landscape. Just start to notice their impact. Without engaging with them. But when you do notice that things start to pull you away or overwhelm you, just notice the sense of inner conflict that this gives rise to. All the perceptions and judgments of right and wrong, good and bad, should and shouldn't, fair and unfair. Just notice that when we get caught up in that, we're creating our own war within. This push and pull struggle. Whether it be about the state of the world or the state of our own self-perception. Can you just let go of all of that for this moment? As you see that holding on to it simply perpetuates the conflict. And that all these perceptions are just created by the mind through memory, imagination, views and opinions. And they keep us trapped at the level of mental conflicts. So just see them clearly for what they are. Perceptions. Arising and ceasing. Created by our own personal conditioning and perpetuated by clinging or grasping them and believing them. So what happens when you refuse to believe in them anymore? When you start to practice letting go of them, no longer holding on to them for dear life. So as to define who you are or who you think the other is or are. What arises in this space when we keep letting go of all mental perceptions? Can you notice that? Even for half a second. Things arise and continue to cease. The body still breathes. The thoughts still move. But when we stop the identification and the clinging, what arises? What are you more cognizant of in those spaces, in those gaps? We stop battling. We stop fighting with anything that arises. Not trying to push anything away. Just see it come. Don't engage. And it naturally dissolves. You see it for what it is, clearly. So fleeting, so substanceless. Whether it be a momentary sensation or a fleeting thought perception. These are all simply arising and dissolving in the larger space of awareness. And when you can start to tune more into that space of awareness, like you would tune in to a radio frequency, looking for that frequency. When you really connect with that, that's where you can find the place of inner peace and quietude, which is coming out from those other discordant frequencies. So we're really learning to tune in to that radio station that's always there. We've just got the dial switched to the wrong frequency. And how do you tune to this frequency more and more? By doing nothing. Simply resting, wide awake. Not pulling, not pushing. The Buddha summed it up in 2 words. And those 2 words are really the essence of the practice. He said, don't cling. Nothing in this world is worth clinging to. And by this world, he meant all the changing phenomena, everything. Don't cling. For whenever we cling to anything, good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, we suffer. So when we learn to attune to that place or space, or that frequency of non-clinging. It's in this space that we can rest in peace. And from this space, that frequency can go out to the world. Even without us necessarily trying to force it to go out, the frequency will naturally be a frequency of peace and wisdom, tranquility and compassion. And if you can tune into your own innate frequency of these characteristics, we can consciously share that with others as well. By wishing that all beings can find inner peace, inner connectedness, that all beings can see through the illusions of boundaries and labels, identities, separations. Which are just things that we cling to as being real and solid. But in this space where all those things dissolve, and we recognize and sense a deeper fabric of life, of reality, then allow your own frequency of inner calm and peace to be a force of goodness in the world. And to share that intention with all beings, particularly those who are suffering, either through their own unskillful actions or because they're facing some hardship. And without picking up any ideas, labels, or views, we share that space of compassion and equanimity with everyone. Ceasing all discriminatory labels. So may all beings come to wisdom and find the truth within. May all beings be free from suffering. May they be free from hatred, from ill will, from greed. May all beings, including this one I call myself, be free from all delusions and illusions. And may all my actions be virtuous, at least my intentions. And then when they're not, may I strive to develop greater wisdom, virtue, and compassion in order to bring those qualities into the world. And consciously tuning into this very frequency, inevitably has an effect on the whole world. Whether we believe it or not, or know it or not. It can't but be a source of goodness in this troubled world. Okay, well, I hope some of those reflections and attunements were helpful for you, particularly when we're dealing with so much confusion and conflict in the external world. And if we subject ourselves to too much of that information and images, which are just so easily available and frequently available now, with, instant reporting, social media shares, the stuff that's being popped out there, our whole mental landscape can be completely consumed by images of horror and suffering. So we really need to be skillful during these times, both for ourselves and for others, so that we're not simply just contributing to the confusion, and recognizing that we do have power to change the world when we take time to change the landscape within ourselves, which might be a battleground within, and to turn that battleground into a place of truce, a place of peace and surrender. That in and of itself has an effect. And some people might say, big deal, it's no big deal. It's just me, one person. But, everything has an effect, has a wave-like effect on the whole. And at one level, it's the only area where we have power and control. Not really liking that word control because of what it implies in the English language, but you know what I mean. We have agency to make changes to the war within. So those reflections were just some pointers to hopefully help us all do that, and to encourage us not to spend excessive amounts of time drowning in images and stories and feeding the, what do you call it? Well, the internal dialogue around it all. Okay, so an opportunity for some questions if they arise. So I'm glad that was helpful for people. And yeah, I look pink, Peter, but my robes are actually brown, but maybe it needed to be pink this morning. They say this pink color, don't they? The rose color has properties of healing and compassion. So maybe I played with the positioning to try and get more light, but it turned me purple. Okay. So thank you all for participating in that and for putting your hearts into it. So there's a question. Could you explain briefly 5 aggregates meaning, please? Did you use some meanings in today's meditation? So the 5 aggregates, I probably referred to the body, which is one of the 5 aggregates, form, feeling. So I referred to that, yes. So just to notice those 2 aggregates at kind of the most obvious. So I asked you to notice the form, being the body and the breath. Okay, it's very gross one level and has lots of subtle sensations too. And then the perceptions, which is one of the aggregates too, which is called sanya. So to notice the mental perceptions that arise in the mind. And then consciousness. So we were looking at the 5 aggregates throughout this session. But just to mention because I don't want to go into detail about them, because Ayya Jatindriya I think it was the last Buddha Dharma series, session 4. If you haven't been watching her series, I would encourage you to, if you want to get more understanding about the Buddhist framework, because she's going into these aggregates in great detail. I think it was the last session, session 4. If it wasn't session 4, it was session 3. But anyway, if you click onto those last 2 sessions, she mentions at the beginning what she's going to talk about. And I'm pretty sure those aggregates, well, I know those aggregates are there, but I don't know which one it was. So please go back and listen to that, because you'll get a lot more detail than just a quick answer here. Okay, and you can also just Google it, the 5 aggregates in Buddhism. Okay, so another question, how do you feel about Miyamoto Musashi? I don't really feel that much because I don't know that much about him. I know he was a some sort of samurai practitioner, but I haven't read much. Apart from a few brief quotes or something I've seen, I don't know much about him, so I can't comment. So Ericus appreciates the rose color of my brown robes. I was thinking about hope versus despair as waves of feeling and lovely meditation. Yeah, we have to not drown in that despair. And hope doesn't have to be false hope. It can even just be a hope of, may all beings come out of despair, and knowing that eventually, some will. And we might be able to help pull a few out along the way, or pull ourselves out if we're caught, if we're drowning in the sea of despair. Because the world has always been this way, believe it or not. It's just that we're saturated with it now. We get it in real time. We get those images. But it's not, we have a sense perhaps that the world's getting worse. At one level, en masse, maybe it is. But it's just that we're so aware of it. Think about when I was growing up, I didn't have a clue what was going on in the Middle East, and get a little bit of news, but it was always going on. It's been going on for centuries, that conflict in one form or another. It's got some interesting karma there, and it's been constantly changing hands, and it's so complicated, so complex. But it's just that we're so aware of it now. And so it's not to say shut ourselves off or ignore it, but we really have to be wise and skillful with how much of this information we take in, and what it's doing to our mental health, what it's doing to our heart. And know that, peaceful protests can be a good thing for people, writing petitions, those sorts of things. I'm not saying they're not helpful. They can make changes. But when we're feeling hopeless, despair, and confusion about the world, we do have agency. And, this is what a spiritual path's about. And it's recognizing that this ignorance is always been in samsara. It's why samsara comes into appearance, into existence. It is the nature. There's also the nature of samsara that is virtuous and kind and compassionate. But we get flooded with all the so-called negative stuff, and we get very lopsided. And then that influences everybody else's thought stream and behavior. So sometimes we need to just be very selective with what we ingest and take in. Okay, so Mike is asking, I know loneliness is part of life, How can I get past the loneliness to the right frequency you described today? My family has left me. So it's, I guess at one level, it's not getting past it either. We don't want to, if you're feeling grief and despair and loneliness, you have to acknowledge that that's there. That frequency is there. Been calling it a frequency today. I don't often use that language, but it's quite helpful. So those feelings of loneliness have to be felt and opened up to. But again, it's all about skillfulness, the way we open up to it. If we just try to deny it, push it away, or drink out or take drugs to numb it, we're just making the matter worse. But it's that middle way of not indulging it too, and not believing the storyline about it all. So, in times like this, when it's really challenging, Mike, and you're alone, that's an opportunity to try and find resources that will help you through such difficulty, whether that be a friendship group, a sangha, a spiritual sangha, or a therapist, just to check in, am I needing some help? Often we do, we can't do all of this by ourselves. So to look out for some supports, to have a few sessions with a skilled therapist to guide you through this, because for me to just talk about it in a very brief YouTube forum is not the right forum for one to go into any depth, but it's more to say, open yourself up to help as well as learning, I guess, the self-help skills, and use a bit of both. And so these guided meditations are just another resource that you can use in addition to other hands-on help. And we're sending you all the best. And just the only thing I can say is that these feelings too will pass. But don't be in a hurry to bypass them, because they can also offering you something quite powerful. So many levels. So Eve has said, would you say that the attunement to the higher frequency of love, practiced daily, would align one more easily with the consistency of the practice? Absolutely, Eve. That's exactly what it's about. So, and if you don't want to give it names of frequency or love or higher power or anything, you just know it for that, even that wordless state of knowing that I've let go of all of these complications in my head of thinking. I've let go now of all these troubling emotions, or they're letting go of themselves, put it that way. And I'm attuning to that space within that knows them, but doesn't grab onto them, doesn't identify with them. And when you find that space, you realize, I didn't create that space. That awareness is always there. That still point is always there. It's just occluded by all these clouds of emotions, thoughts, views, feelings, perceptions. So it's about allowing the clouds to clear and for the sun to come out. That's one metaphor. Or it's about waiting for the waves to calm down so that the ocean becomes calm again. But the waves really don't go anywhere. They just go back into the ocean. So we're not cutting things off. We're not dividing things up as to good and bad. These things are part of our journey, part of our mental, physical, spiritual landscape. And the less, using this analogy of war, the less we stop fighting with them and kind of put our weapons down, make a truce with all those inner perceived enemies, then we find, oh, there's a natural peace there because there's no one to fight them anymore. These things are only a problem if we perceive them as an enemy, as something we don't want, and we go into battle with them. And then the war within starts and perpetuates. So we have to see, oh, they're just as they are. And so much I talked about in that meditation. They're just fleeting, substanceless images that are impermanent, not a self. They're not who and what you are. And when we cling to them as me and mine, they give rise to suffering. So it's seeing these things with everything. That's why I said, the Buddha said, don't cling to anything. Whatever you cling to, even the most beautiful, blissed out, higher frequency love, if you cling to it, it becomes sullied. Even if we're clinging for this ideal of world peace and love, utopia, we're clinging for it. We have to get to this ideal Aquarian age. We cling to that. It's just a clinging, it's just a perception, and it sullies it because the world changes. It's not a utopia, but neither is it always a hell for ourselves or for others. It's always a mixed bag, to be honest. So we see things that are constantly changing. You know, we go up, we go down. You know, there's always good and bad. There's always right and wrong in the perceptions. And if we take sides and cling to one, we're just creating more conflict, more division. Okay. Oops. Where have we gone? This thing jumps. Okay. Someone's asked, do you like Ken Wilber's way of describing waking up or growing up? I haven't read any Ken Wilber for years and years and years, so I'm not sure what he's saying these days. I did a master's thesis on him in my mid to late 20s, but I don't know what he's saying anymore, so I can't comment on him either. Okay, so this is perfect. Really, okay, I'm glad that was helpful for you, lady pause. So another question on Buddhist teaching, is it more appropriate to enter it through anapanasati or for foundations of mindfulness? Either. And when you say through Vipassana simply means insight. So when you practice anapanasati or the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and you see clearly with insight, that's Vipassana. So Vipassana is not actually a practice or a method or a technique. The Buddha never taught Vipassana as a technique. Vipassana is just a word that means to see clearly with insight. And if you want to say anapanasati or the 4 foundations of mindfulness as a technique, you can, if you like. It's a practice. Be careful about making anything into a technique because it becomes so mechanical. But yeah, just notice the breathing, become more aware of the different foundations of mindfulness, body, form, feeling, mental states, so on. And when you see clearly what's going on, that is insight, Vipassana. Okay, so Renee's saying that, scrolling in Facebook, all those images, gory images out there, and notice what it does to us. It's a good practice too, without taking it to an extreme. When you see an image of war or suffering, what it does to the heart. And we can use some of those feelings to, develop wisdom and insight as well. but then notice what its the long-term effects might be, and to just practice restraint and put some boundaries around how much we consume. I'm not saying just everything's lovely and Pollyanna-ish, but, we know our limits, don't we? Just burn out through all these, the way the media just keeps feeding the war. What's wrong with the world? What's wrong with the world? What's wrong with the world? We don't hear what's might be right with the world. So it's not balanced. The world's very out of balance, as we know, with so many divisions and sides and arguing. So we have to be a force for greater peace and wisdom. That's all we can do. So we need to get out of our own way. In some ways we do, yeah, absolutely. Our own way meaning our perceptions, our conditioning, and again, not going into war with them and thinking, oh, they're all just these perceptions are all just such a bunch of nonsense, even though they are at one level. We have to be compassionate towards them, just understand them and be patient. And when we bring that attitude to what's coming up mentally, emotionally, physically, then it's like any response. If you're kind and compassionate, they're not going to keep bothering you. They'll feel heard, and they'll feel loved and accepted, and they will change. So can we cling to letting go, or just the idea? Are you saying should we, or can we sometimes cling to it? Yeah, we can cling to anything. We can cling to the most beautiful. When I say can, we can mistakenly cling to the most beautiful ideals of spirituality, Buddha Dharma, Advaita, anything, Christianity. But you notice those people who cling to these ideals, to the best, to the highest, they're no different from people clinging to the most unskillful, become fundamentalist, self-righteous, and then we judge others. They're not as good as me because I have the best idea. I'm letting go. I'm the only good spiritual practitioner. So any clinging to anything is just a form of the self clinging, right? But when letting go doesn't mean clinging, that's the difference. Letting go means seeing where we're clinging. And when we see where we're clinging, letting go is a natural result or response. So any idea should not be clung to. And if you look at the world, you can see the world is beset by clinging to ideas. On the right, on the left, in the middle, far out. And my idea is right, yours is wrong. And they're just ideas. And there might be some truth in some of them, might be some great falsity in others. But even if they're true, if we cling to them, like I just explained, that we cling to a truth as a conception, it's a problem. It becomes a problem. It becomes another ego-driven, self-righteous view. Okay, so I'm glad that was helpful for you, Naomi, right now. Okay, and William. So someone's asking, I constantly feel shame, anxiety, and inadequacy through many years. I'm trying to not identify with them and let them flow, but sometimes they feel physically painful and they get the better of me. Of course, and they will. You can't just turn the switch straight away, and all those years and lifetimes of shame and anxiety aren't just going to miraculously disappear, all of them. But, every now and then you find that space where, well, they're not there anymore. So in that moment, you're free from them. But if we're thinking, I want this moment to stay, I don't want the physical pain to come in and overwhelm me, then we're clinging to a moment where, we like. So again, it's embracing those moments when we feel the pain and so-called getting the better of me. Just to notice, okay, I'm feeling an overwhelming sense of physical pain with these emotions, and I feel they're getting the better of me. This is what you're saying. But, what is it that knows that? There's something within you that's even able to type this sentence, that says, I feel physical pain and they feel like they're getting the better of me, is not the thing that feels physical pain and is not the thing that they're so-called getting the better of. So notice that awareness itself is always there. And to just know with wisdom that these things will pass. None of them, the most painful or the most pleasant, are going to last. And you know this because you're able to observe it. So keep observing it and don't try to push it away or make things disappear so quickly. So patience is really, I guess, the most important attribute to have on the spiritual path. And a lot of people out there, I'm not saying you, but a lot of people don't have patience. They want enlightenment now or in a 1-week course. And it's not going to happen. It might happen in their head, in their imagination. But it's really not going to happen unless someone's extremely rare and has the karma for it. So patience, we all have to be patient and let go of this, I want it to be this way now. I want to get rid of all my rubbish, so-called rubbish, and be an enlightened, loving, compassionate person. It takes time. In the scheme of things, it takes time. The relative world. In the absolute world, it takes no time. So as I said, in that moment when it all drops, that is that moment. And to acknowledge that and to get this balance going between time and timelessness, it's something to really keep reflecting on because they're both there, okay? Time and timelessness. So Alexandra is asking, I have deep pain in my left side in my body, most left side core. I try to feel it. I really tried for years. I can't deal with it yet. It is so big and overwhelming. I try to welcome it. What do I do? I guess my last answer is the same for you, Alexandra. I mean, if it's a physical pain, I'd be going to a doctor or a physio or whatever. I can't comment from a medical perspective. It sounds like it's a physical thing going on. So, and I'm not sure if you've got it checked out, but I'd encourage you to. If you I'm not sure from what you've written, but if it just feels like some sort of emotional pain that comes up that you're finding very hard to face into, to feel, then my answer is the same, is just to be gentle with yourself, be patient, and increments, a little bit at a time. We can't open up completely in one go, one swell to all of this stuff, emotional pain. We just have to just be patient and allow that we'll get what we need in the capacity that we need to be able to deal with it. But that's a complicated question because I'm not sure how much of that is a physical issue. So, but in terms of the mental emotional approach, it's pretty much what I've been saying, just be patient, allow things to open up. Okay, this is a question about who or was Jesus in my vision and why in his name people create so much trouble in the world. Well, Jesus, I don't know who Jesus was. We have a historical record, we say in the Bible, and some of those words that you read are obviously from someone who is deeply wise and compassionate, and you take those words as pointers, as any of the masters have left us. I mean, Jesus was a long time ago, so those historical records have gone through all sorts of incarnations and translations. But you take always with these things, what I do with the masters is always just really reflect on what's being said. And there's a sense that there's some precious jewel within these words that have been left us. And you take those skillful pointers and apply them to one's practice. And those that don't, who twist his words for their own political gains, do that because people are ignorant. And then, and create religions around all these great masters. The Buddha wasn't a Buddhist. Jesus wasn't a Christian. All those things came later. We created them. That's what we do because we like to be the best or better. We like to be right. And if those other mob are right in their religion, that means we must be wrong. It's very hard for us to accept differences and that people express things differently and they might also have truth to offer. It's the nature of people and ignorance, really. So what could this community, it says an and, so I'm wondering if Yahweh Exalts had an initial question, because I'm not seeing, anyway, I'll just read from and. I've lost you. Oh, here. And what could this community do if we were more connected and focused on helping each other, sharing needs and resources? Wisdom leadership was the way of many traditional societies, now unwisdom. Yeah, so I guess we're talking about this community. I'm not sure what community you're talking about. This Wisdom of the Masters community, which is very small. or the wider country and community. But yeah, I mean, connection and helping each other is where it all needs to be focused. Absolutely. And I guess this channel was created to share resources which the masters have shared with us. And these sessions are about connecting. Just a small little drop in the ocean, but it's something that's helping some people, a few people out there. So all I can do. Okay. So people have a few nice little sharings here. Become no one, no thing, and go nowhere. And Marion's favourite motto, this too shall pass. Yeah, both of those have deep wisdoms. They could become your koans, your mantras, because there's so much truth in just those few words. Yep. So people, I won't read everything out because people are just sharing some nice reflections, but you can read it in the comments if you've got the comments up. Yep. Oh, that's good. There's lots of reflections today, not so many questions. Okay, what happens to us when we let go of everything all the time? Find out. If you can let go of everything all the time, basically you'll be free. But, that's an idea. We have to find out what it means to let go of everything. And, as it is written, If we let go of it, Ajahn Chah said, if you let go of a little bit, you get a little bit of peace. If you let go of a lot, you'll get a lot of peace. If you let go of everything, you'll get complete peace. So that's what he said. Don't believe what I say. Just listen to what some of the masters say. Okay. Timelessness always throws me for a loop. Anywho, would you mind exploring the collective unconscious and perhaps its role and effect on an individual and collective level? It's a big question. Rita, what can I say about that in just a few minutes? Other than what you're saying, yeah, the collective, we're all part of this collective unconscious, this or this collective consciousness too, whether it's conscious or unconscious. We wouldn't be here unless we were somehow karmically linked with the shared experience on this planet at this time. And all we're seeing, all we're perceiving is an earth separate from everything else. We don't have any sense of other worlds or other beings apart from animals that we can see. So we have this kind of very narrow view. But the world, the universe is much bigger than this tiny little earth in a massive universe that's constantly expanding. So what to say about that collective consciousness, unconsciousness? But if we're talking about what's happening in the collective shared experience today, this is what I'm saying, at a very simple level, it has an effect on us, and I don't want to go too much into this in terms of other effects that our thoughts and actions can have on the world and the planet, but it does. And there's scientific explanations of it in terms of climate change and global warming and consumption, and they have their scientific validity. But it's interesting to think about the coming from a Buddhist perspective, the collective conscious and unconscious thoughts of greed, hatred, and delusion. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of it in the world at the moment, and people have different explanations for this current state of affairs. Different traditions. Some will talk about Kali Yuga, the Dark Ages, and that's been predicted for a long time. And if we're thinking about just the masses of greed, hatred, and delusion, and what we're seeing in the wars all over the planet, not just, we're focusing on Israel and Gaza at the moment, but there's so many wars going on in Africa that we don't even know about, or they don't get reported. And of course, the ongoing large conflict in Ukraine and Russia. So there's a sense that there's a collective mass of greed, hatred, and delusion out there. And in the Buddhist perspective, that this is just energy, right? You can really sense this within yourself. When you feel anger, deep anger and rage, you're on fire, right? You create a lot of heat. So we're not separate from the world. So if there's a masses of people, this collective consciousness generating this masses of heat in the form of anger, mental states, emotional states, or greed. Greed itself has a kind of consuming, fiery effect. Humans are bigger contributors of ethane gases than cows. We're just pouring out this greed, hatred, and delusion. So I've heard some Buddhist masters, when they've talked about bushfires, saying when people's minds are on fire, it creates heat, and it contributes to a lot of the fires in the world. Interesting, huh? You don't have to believe that, but it's an interesting perspective. And certainly in olden days, they had much more a sense of their actions causing destruction and floods, famines, droughts. So they had a sense, the old people, the primitive people, as we call them, the wise indigenous people, that virtuous actions would have a direct impact on our environment because we're not separate from it. We're intricately connected, interconnected. And we all think we're kind of these fantastic humans separate from the environment and we've got control of the environment. That's the greatest delusion on the planet. We are the world. We're creating the world within, the world without. There's no separation. So anyway, that's a little bit of a reflection on that, how the role and the effects. So that's why you create within yourself a feeling of coolness and calm. It can affect everything around you, and that everything around you is not separate from everything out there, right? Those ripple effects go on. And that's why Nibbana actually means cooling. It means a going out of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. So people who, realize Nibbana, always in that state, they're very cool. They're cool. That means they're cold. They're not cold and cut off. There's a coolness. There's no clinging. There's no gotta get, gotta move, gotta go, gotta consume, gotta be, gotta keep being me. They're cooled from those fires. So that's our practice. We've got to cool down. We've got to slow down because everyone's on hyperdrive, hyperspeed. And when there's speed, there's friction, there's fire, there's movement. So it's about slowing down and finding coolness. Rightio. 8:30. Maybe just one more question because I'm coming to the end of my session here. So someone's mentioned Jyotindra's loving kindness meditations. And thank you for reminding me, Lady Pause, because I wanted to mention it to a few people here. The person who spoke about their loneliness and the person who spoke about their pain in the body. If you go on to our website, Jyotindra has a few series on loving kindness that I think are very helpful to work with this, some of these psychological and physical problems that we all have, but particularly if you're struggling. And she has got a new series coming up that deal very specifically with difficult emotions. So we're hoping that we might post those on our website before the end of the year. So please look out for them. So I'm just reading some of your lovely appreciative comments, and maybe I'll take one more question. Okay, just one from God's Grace. Naka. Can you successfully pursue spiritual growth even if your partner isn't so interested? Can you positively affect each other for a higher vibration and peace eventually? I think undoubtedly. I mean, it depends how you practice with that person. I mean, there's so much to say on that one. We assume that your partner isn't interested in spiritual growth, but maybe they're just not interested in the way you think it should manifest. Or they're just, for a moment, it's all a bit too weird and scary for them to go down that path. So it might appear that they're just lost in the material world. But it's up to you to, I guess, you be the change you want to see in the world. You be the change you want to help in your partner. So your patience and kindness and understanding, regardless of their choices or their particular bent, will inevitably impact them. Yeah. And, I'm not sure how long-term this partnership is or how committed, but, if you're not compatible, it'll be obvious that you need to go your separate ways, perhaps, at some stage. If you're really getting into it and she's like, no, or he's not interested. But it doesn't have to be acrimonious. It just, people have different interests. But it depends on how long-term this is, how much complicated with children or not children, or, just it's your call to see how it goes. If you want to just make that commitment and be completely unconditionally accepting. And they may or may not turn towards it. But at one level, we're all spiritual beings. It's just that we're expressing it differently. So you don't have to see her or him as not spiritual. It's just that they're at where they're at. We're all at our different places with this. So it's a difficult question. There's no kind of blanket answer for that. But certainly I would say you can definitely, if you're non-judgmental and unconditional in response to them, that will definitely impact them, their perception towards you, and the overall relationship. So Dave thought it was methane. What did I say? I can't remember what I said, but yeah, the methane gases from the cows. What did I say? Ethanol? I don't know. The farting from the cows is methane, isn't it? Thanks, Dave. All right. So I'm going to have to stop now and wish you all well. And just to remind you that next fortnight, Ayatindriya will be up to session 5 with the Buddha Dharma series. So if you're enjoying that, following that, please come back in a fortnight, same time, same channel. And I'm not sure what she's going to cover, but I know it's going to be interesting. So all the best to everyone out there, and may you continue to practice loving kindness within and without, to share it with, and use skillful means to navigate these difficult times so that we're not absorbing too much of the horror, but that we're contributing somehow to the peace and the coolness. And may you all be well. And I think that's all I had to say today. So thank you, everyone, for your attendance and your kindness and expressions of hearts. There's lots of hearts going up. I don't know if that's automatic or someone keeps pressing the heart button. I don't know. It's a funny world, isn't it? All right, so take care, and we'll see you. I'll see you in about, I don't know, 6 weeks' time or something. All right, all the best, and bye.